Welcome to the Campaign Trend podcast, where you're joining in on a conversation with the people who make professional politics happen. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Our guest today is Billy McBeath, a veteran strategist who's helped design some of the most complex Republican media campaigns of the past decade during his time at the Senate Leadership Fund. He's written recently about two big challenges, making sense of polling, modeling, and reporting when they don't line up, and why so much connected TV spending still misses the mark in 2025. So in this episode, we'll dig into how campaigns can actually make data useful, what smarter CTV buying looks like, and how to avoid wasting money while still reaching the voters who matter most. All right, Billy. Every campaign says they're data-driven, but when you look under the hood, it's hard to figure out what the data is actually telling us. What causes all of this conflicting data?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Second, this is a great starting point for just foundational building blocks of a campaign. From a digital practitioner standpoint, there's so much data out there that most of the time you just can't figure out where to start. Yeah. And what we found was, there are custom models, there are off-the-shelf models, there's the polling, there's ad reporting, and then you throw on top of all the in-platform data that advertisers have as their own special sauce. Like, what do you do? So we found that the best way to discern what is happening is to start foundationally with, okay, what is our modeling project going to look like? Are we going to ask people how they are consuming media, or are we going to use automatic content recognition to model out consumption behaviors? And then, okay, next step, we're going to be using a lot of polling to measure how our audiences are performing. So how does the polling match up to the model that we have just built? And lastly, how does the ad reporting that you have coming in match back to the audiences that you've modeled and polled? So when you're sitting there thinking about first step, you also have to be thinking about last step, and even sometimes ad execution. Like, how do we structure our audiences and our ad buys to make sure that they line up with the audience that we are tracking?
Yeah, I think one of the images I always go back to and give people a hard time, especially in digital, and I think this is kind of a curse, right? We can measure everything. Contrast that with other parts of the campaign strategy stack that can't measure things as well, and you'll always get dashboards. And whenever I see like multi-page dashboards, I sort of say, hey, stop. What is a dashboard? It's the thing on your car to decide, should I keep going or to get off the highway, right? You just want to look down really quick. Do I have enough gas? Is my engine overheating? Am I going the proper speed? But if you have a 17-page dashboard, you're probably going to wreck your car. And so I think that's one of the things is, like, everyone wants to listen to the data, but we don't know which data to listen to. And so I think your framework here is really helpful. The modeling is foundation, polling is directional, and reporting is the proof. So what's the mistake that campaigns make when they treat those separately? And I would even add to that, how do they get them to talk together?
Well, so I think most people have gotten to the point now where the model and the polls kind of talk to each other, because the pollsters, it's
usually the same person,
around
right?
with modeling a little bit, and then the modeling obviously is the audience level set for everyone. But the really large problem right now is the digital, how the digital team ties everything back together. It's like one of my big directives when I started at SLF was, how do I get us to talk about digital the way that people talk about television and phones and mail? And that kicked off like a 10-year project of how are we correctly measuring the digital outputs on a polling call. I mean, like, if you can make the pollster your friend, you have an advocate that everyone else listens to, and then you're not sitting there talking about a random study that Google just put out. You're like talking through the channels that the actual decision makers use.
So polling is still kind of the gold standard. Those are the goalposts.
Well, I mean, it's directional. Like you're not going to know which message to talk to next if you're just putting your finger up in the wind.
So how do we fix that? How does a campaign fix that and specifically, getting modeling, polling, and reporting to line up?
Well, so that's what I'm saying. You have to think through step by step. Okay, we're going to build the model this way. So we're going to poll the model as similar to the way we built the model as we can. And then in reporting from the digital side, we're going to look at the television only audience and how it's performing, the streaming only audience, how it's performing, the streaming plus TV audience. Like, are we seeing numbers move on these audiences? And if they are, what's the next step that we take? Do we have to change message? Do we have to change,
targeting or delivery? Sort of that kind of thing.
DMAs, so zip codes, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I guess I'm trying to make this practical for listeners, because I think you've got modeling and polling, and those are sort of, we can match those back to the voter file, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Like that, and it's typically the same firm or partnered firms. But then on the reporting, it's, maybe you're using multiple DSPs, you're doing Facebook, you're doing Google, you've got, and they're reporting not to the voter file. So what's the trick there to get the apples to oranges or apples to apples comparison, rather?
Well, there are people doing research into clean rooms that ties back to the voter file for run logs and digital impressions. But we did a lot of that last cycle. I think that people will continue to study that, but we're still probably 2 cycles off from that being an actual real proof point that we can use in saying that we hit this demographic or this audience got the frequency that we expected tied back to the voter file. Right now you're using, it's really complicated, but I think you want to scratch that part. The whole it's really complicated part.
Yeah. Well, it starts to get really difficult when you're trying to navigate all of these streams together.
Yeah. So you have to have a really solid and rigid process that is well thought through. So, for example, last year, we did a study with Google, and our kind of KPIs were to figure out if in all platform placement, so like laptop, tablet, and mobile and CTV, like if that would be like how we split our buy. What we found was it wasn't the device that we were serving on, it was the frequency, and it was kind of like an accidental find. And then we immediately went back in the field and ran it again and found that the 14 frequency on YouTube actually moved image and ballot numbers. So we're mid-cycle, about to launch, SLF at Labor Day, and we are having to rebuild half of our entire advertising strategy because we found that YouTube moves numbers like broadcast does. Yeah. So we had to retool everything from the ground up mid-cycle. So it's never a firm process. It's always changing.
And credit to you and the leadership there for pivoting that. I think there are some folks who might have just said, "Oh, well, we'll get them next year," and so being able to that's what following the data looks like. I want to pose, I think, maybe a controversial question, but it might just be realpolitik. Is trying to compare digital to the way we do broadcast and mail and phones the right way, or is that just kind of the nature of the game right now and how we allocate budgets?
Well, I mean, I've started thinking about it in 2 different ways. Digital, specifically, in 2 different ways. There's digital broadcast, which are the platforms that don't allow us to use data, like Hulu and YouTube. And then there is like nonlinear cable, which is the rest of the long tail, being it buying from a DSP and SSP or direct from Peacock and Paramount.
Okay.
So it just makes it easier for everyone to understand what you're talking about. Like, these are very complex systems. We don't need to talk, the difference in why we're buying Roku versus Paramount versus Peacock at in stakeholder meetings,
Got it.
unless we have some really good findings. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we just need to get them comfortable with the concepts, which I think everybody kind of already is at this point.
So let's go through the three buckets that you've got in your media plan. So there's TV only, streaming only, and unreachable. What does that maybe give us a quick definition of each of those groups and a brief definition of each of those groups, and sort of what does that mean for the media plan and how we buy?
Yeah, so we actually came up with 4 main groups. It was TV only, TV plus, streaming only, and unreachable.
Right.
And those are self-identified from the polling. So, you match that up with the modeling and you really get your audiences there.
You ask someone, where do you get TV?
Right.
Basically.
People
Okay.
that primarily watch in television, people that watch linear and nonlinear television, and people that watch linear only, and then those that say they don't watch any live television.
Got it.
Or not live television. The most fun part of this, I mean, obviously we got what we wanted and understood how to measure the streaming bucket, but the most fun part of it was, okay, now we have this little unreachable audience that says they don't watch television. Like, how are we going to reach those guys? So we punched the mail program up a little bit. We maybe send them a text or 2 more for that week. You get to really kind of dial in your spend and watch it move in the polling.
Interesting.
Based off of what you're placing.
Got it. So it's basically, everyone's going to get a little bit of each thing, but some people are going to get more because we're reaching them over here.
Yeah, there was a major state last cycle where we couldn't afford to be up statewide on television. So they picked the 2 largest markets and went blasted on television. And then the rest of the state was picked up by basically the digital team. And what we found was the movement there was similar because we were at such a high volume. Granted, we had that Google test to prove that we could move numbers with 14 frequencies. So, feel like it worked for us. We won a few races or helped.
Let me. You're listening to the Campaign Trend Podcast. I'm speaking with Billy McBeath about how campaigns should approach media buying in 2026. I want to ask a question about that Google study. Do you think it's going to stay at 14 impressions, or is it going to go up or down?
I mean, I don't know. You have to test and retest every year.
I'm asking you for a prediction, right? Is that a magic number that we need to hold on to, or is it?
I mean, it worked really well for us,
okay.
And people are continuing to move eyeballs to YouTube. I mean, they're the largest purveyor of video in the world,
right.
So I don't see it going anywhere soon.
And so, to your point, streaming has overtaken broadcast, but most of this connected TV buying still looks like it's stuck in 2015. What are the mistakes that you see campaigns and media buyers still getting wrong?
I think most people have come around to, buying programmatically at the DSP level, but there are, second and third order effects that we found last year when we were the name of the game now is expanding your unique reach. And how do you set up a program that you can use and swap out networks to see how much unique reach each buy is giving you? So you go in and you say, okay, we're buying through this DSP. Now we're going to try out a direct buy with this network, or we're going to try placing through this SSP. How much reach is that adding to our overall, excuse me, how much reach is that adding to our buy, and how much of that reach is unique? And what we found in the end was we built kind of a very holistic buy that had a maximum of about 10% overlap. And we're talking placing through the DSP, multiple SSPs, and multiple owned and operated systems.
Got it. So it's figuring out how do you, I guess, deconflict or reduce, not necessarily eliminate your overlap.
Right. Overlap isn't inherently bad. An extreme amount of overlap is.
Right. And so that shows us that fragmentation really is the problem or the challenge to overcome here, because you illustrate, this is kind of blew my mind because I think I knew it intuitively, but you laid it out explicitly in a way that I hadn't seen before. So multiple sellers controlling the same TV program or video content. Walk us through that example and what does that mean for a campaign buyer?
Yeah. So what you're talking about, I think, is the slide where I have like an ad break in The Masked Singer on Fox being watched on Hulu.
Right.
And basically it just boils down to, content ownership rights and distribution rights. So if you're watching The Masked Singer on Fox, on a Hulu, probably being distributed by Roku. So You've got Fox has ads in that pod, Hulu has ads, and so does Roku. So each one of those places could be serving your ad in that content. What you have to do is figure out how to deconflict it. Is the best word to use it. And how you do that is like using a DSP, the control for unique reach across your audience. So instead of showing 3 ads in an ad pod that has 5 ads, you're showing 1 or 2, and you're still getting your 8 to 10 a week frequency that you want.
So does that mean that there's sort of like that local Fox ad? So someone goes to like the affiliate and buys it, or is it a Fox Digital?
Now you're just getting into the super complicated stuff.
But so I'm trying to illustrate how, like if your TV buyer is buying the local broadcast and then, someone else is, I'm going to do the digital, like you're now paying to advertise on the same thing. Is that kind of
sometimes you do run into where the linear buy and the non-linear buy are airing in the same place. That's still a big area of overlap. I wouldn't say it's huge.
Got it.
But
it can happen. So you in your piece, you lay out 4 rules for smarter CTV buying. What are they? And which of those is going to move the needle fastest for a campaign that wants to get it right?
I think the one that we just talked on was cross-platform frequency management. How do we make sure that we're getting the correct amount of frequency per week or message? And that boils down to consolidated buying, which is using a centralized platform, whether it be a DSP or a company like Innovid or Nielsen that can manage unique reach for you. Then obviously we started off the conversation with it, but I think it obviously is the core is how do you use your data? What does the setup look like? Have you thought through the base layer all the way to the reporting layer and tying that whole, making a system that works functionally and changing it if you need to midstream? And then lastly is the inventory diversity, which goes back to how many SSPs are an efficient use of your advertising dollars? How many direct deals? How do you structure your PMPs or your PG deals? Like all of those things thought through before you start will make your buy significantly more efficient.
Got it. So we're heading into 2026, big midterm election. We've got several competitive Senate seats up. We've got, the control of the House in the balance. What do you think are the biggest opportunities in media buying? And if you could give, one piece of advice to a campaign manager, how not to waste their budget on CTV, what would you recommend?
Well, obviously since our YouTube study, I'm a big fan of the YouTube broadcast strategy. I think it works well. It performed well for us last cycle. Everyone always chased last cycle's narrative, so I think we'll see podcasts being a huge driver. And I am a believer in digital audio because it is a incremental reach play. It's going to be interesting to see how campaigns navigate it just from an appearance standpoint, but I'm more worried about the advertising delivery.
Right. So yeah, and there was
I think SSP content moderation or SSP supply optimization is going to be a big thing. Like we did a fair amount of it last cycle and saw some really good gains. It increases the number of people that you're talking to that are on your list. So I expect more people to push into that path. And the DSPs are building out tools to manage that as we speak, because I think they believe it as well.
Yeah. My thanks to Billy for a great conversation. You can, I've got a link to both of his essays in our show notes. Go check them out and see what he's got coming next. If this episode made you a little bit smarter, gave you something to think about, and I hope it did, all we ask is that you share it with a friend or colleague. You look smarter in the process. More people hear about the show. Win-win all around. Remember to subscribe to the Campaign Trend Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode, and visit our website at campaigntrend.com. With that, we'll say thanks for listening. See you next time. All righty.